word he is used for emphasizing this point, that one must do this. It is also said, mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayah bandhaya vishaya sango muktei nirvishayam manah. For man, mind is the cause of bondage, and mind is the cause of liberation. Mind absorbed in sense objects is the cause of bondage, and mind detached from sense object is the cause of liberation. Amrita Bindu Upanishad 2. Therefore, the mind, which is always engaged in Krishna consciousness, is the cause of supreme liberation. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Unmitamena Tasmai Shugave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadikam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadvitam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namustite Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Brashavanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vancha Kalpatarivesha Kripa Sindhu Evacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Budale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swaminite Namane Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Budale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminite Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharne Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Namo Bhagishayasya Vadane Lakshmi Yasyasya Bhakshisi Yasyasti Hidaya Samitam Nishma Mahavali Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Hare Krishna everyone. So thank you to everyone for coming here on a special day. Today is generally people are celebrating Mother's Day. So we really appreciate you showing up to this Sunday feast, and it seems like a lot of mothers are here. So this is the best thing you can do with your Mother's Day, to understand the duty of a mother. The Bhagavatam says that the duty of any parent, a mother, father, or spiritual master is to liberate the child, is to give the child the proper knowledge of self-realization. That is the only duty of a parent, only duty of a caretaker. So by you being present here, you've done your duty. So thank you very much. So like we're discussing, this duty is to, just like I was saying, as the duty of a mother is to liberate the child. So here Krishna starts to speak on this platform of the mind. And Prabhupada is speaking about how this mind is the center of the yoga system. That the conditioned soul, since the mind is the central point of yoga practice, Atma refers to the mind. So, like Prabhupada is explaining here through these certain words, it's not up there, but that this word Atma denotes to many different things. A lot of the time it can denote to the body, mind, and soul. And so in this particular instance, Krishna starts to speak about the mind. How the mind can be the best of our friends or the worst of our enemies. We've experienced this. It can be the worst of our enemies most of the time. We're trying to do something and it won't let us put any concentration into it. We need to get something done tomorrow. We have an exam or something, or we have a test, or we have a job interview or something, and we want to go to sleep, but the mind is so agitated and thinking so much, it won't even let you sleep. So the mind, it plays a very central role in how one actually conducts his life. How one actually, well, the functions of the mind. Can anybody think of what the function of the mind is? What it does? Just like this hand, it takes food and puts it into your belly. It grabs things. It moves things. What is the function of the mind? What does the mind do? Creates thoughts, right? You think. The mind thinks. It is an instrument of thought. Emotion, feeling, right? And then? Anything else is a little bit difficult one at the end. Sure, but we're talking like specifically instrument. Just like, instrument makes a sound. That's what it does. Now, you can use it to do many different things, but we're just speaking about what does it exactly do. You had an answer? It works to keep you safe. Really? Does it? Does it? It's supposed to, right? It's supposed to, but most of the why are people in anxiety? Why do people commit suicide? Well, the mind is uncontrolled. It's meant to keep us safe. Why does it ask us to jump in front of a car? So many things, right? Why does it ask us to smoke a cigarette when you know that it's bad for us? Well, then does it keep us safe? Krishna is saying here that the mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. Does our enemy wish the best for us? What? We hope so. We hope so, but we can be factual. We can say, no, our enemy, we should stay very far away from our enemy, right? We should stay very far away from our enemy. And what's the first thing you don't do you don't trust your enemy. First thing, you never trust your enemy. You don't put your life on the line in the hands of your enemy. You don't put your life on the hands of an enemy. So you're saying, that it is meant to protect us, but actually we're depending our life on the hands of our enemy, actually. We think our enemy is so many things out there. There's this person and that person and this animal and that animal. But actually, Krishna is saying that the greatest enemy is one of the greatest enemies is the mind itself, that uncontrolled mind. So that uncontrolled mind, it degrades us. One must deliver himself with the help of the mind and not degrade himself. So this mind is an instrument by which one elevates himself. Thinking, feeling, and willing, they're the functions of the mind. Now, when it comes, as Prabhupada is speaking here, when it comes in touch with the false ego, now that's where the problem lies. The false ego, Prabhupada is saying here, that in fact the pure soul is entangled in this material world because the mind is involved with the false ego. Because we have a false conception of life and the mind functions on that basis, it is always our enemy. On this basis of false ego, the mind always remains one's enemy. So the yoga system, the purpose of the yoga system is to control the mind and draw it away from attachment to sense objects. So we have this mind. We didn't finish all the functions in the mind. It was thinking, feeling, and willing. So the willing power comes from this mind. You think about it, and then you start to feel for it, and then you desire to act upon that feeling. And so the senses, they are the instrument which carry out that order, you could say, that willing factor. And the senses, they're also instruments. They're controlled the high, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that there is the senses, above the senses there's the mind, and above the mind there's the self. So the mind is uncontrolled, and then it's willing to act on this basis of false ego. And then the body acts according to that. So then there's the sense object, just like the mind. When a person who's addicted to cigarettes, or addicted to heroin, when he sees that sense object, the mind immediately contemplates. Should I do it? Should I not do it? Should I do it? Should I not do it? Or even when you go to the store, you guys must like something that's very expensive. It's really expensive. You know you can't afford it. I saw this article that said, this lady, what is it? Afterpay? Afterpay. Everybody knows about what Afterpay is. So this lady apparently used to be very good with her, her bank and money, and she used to take care of her money real well. But Afterpay came out, and everything she saw was like, I can buy that, and I can just pay it off later. The senses, the input of the eyes, seeing that, the senses seeing that, the mind starts contemplating, I can buy that, and she knows it's not a good idea. She still buys it without her money. She doesn't have the money to pay for it, but the mind is able to convince her to buy that in order to satisfy the senses. The senses see an object of the senses. So let's say like this iPad is the object of my senses, and by getting that, my senses feel a level of sensation, not happiness, not satisfaction. These are two different things. Sensation and satisfaction are two different things. Sensation and pleasure are two different things. We mistake the two. So we think that, the contemplation of the mind convinces us in a certain way, the contemplation goes on to thinking, and then the feeling, I must have it, and then we act upon that. And then so the senses, when the mind has to use the body to act. It's a subtle body. Just like the software has a hardware. So just like that, the software needs a hardware to function. So the mind is like a software, and the hardware is required in order for that software to be carried out. So the senses are the instrument by which the mind carries out those desires, you could say. Those feelings and those thoughts. And so generally that is that we have the senses and the object of the senses. And we think that by satisfying those thoughts and those feelings with our senses, we will become happy, we will derive pleasure. But this is completely false. This is completely false. You can experience it for yourself. We call it chewing the chewed. We've gone through the process so many times, right? How many of us bought the new iPhone? We're like, yes, this is gonna make me happy. Or how many of us bought that new Yeezys and we're like, yep, this is what's gonna make me happy. I saw so many of my friends doing that. The mind contemplates, they see it, they see other people wearing it, they feel like, oh, if I get that, I'll become like a superstar. So then they carry that act out. But is it satisfying? Is it satisfying? Because at the end of the day, shoes is just shoes. Nobody cares, actually. It's just actually, the mind is so expert at blowing things up that if I get these shoes, everybody will look at my shoes and they're going to be like, I'm going to be like the coolest dude on the block with these Yeezys. That cost $1,000 that I don't have, that I got an afterpay. It's going to make me broke. It's going to make me flat broke. But in your mind, you're the Kanye West of your suburb. Because you got the Yeezys and you got the clothes. I saw one shirt. It's a plain white shirt for $200. I was like, what the hell is this? You know why? Because it has a Kanye little tag on the back. You cannot see it. Nobody cares. But the mind is so expert. It makes you feel like this is the thing that's going to change my life. This is the thing. Finally, this is the thing that actually did it for me. How many of us thought like that? How many of us ever thought like that? Who played sports when they were young? Most of us. Who thought we were going to be like, the best of the best, like Michael Jordan when he would play? He thought he was going to be Kobe Bryant. Allen Iverson. I thought I was going to be some great cricket player. Actually, I used to play basketball, so I thought I was going to be Kobe Bryant. Yeah. The small Indian guy who ain't got no muscles. I thought I was going to be Kobe Bryant. Like, am I crazy? Look at how skinny I am. My God, like look, you've seen those NBA players walk around. They're like, my God, size 21 feet. I'm like, man, God damn, this bigger than my face, But I think I'm going to be the greatest of the players. I think I'm going to be the best player. Because I was small, so I'll be like Muggsy Bogues, whatever, that little small guy that used to play. But you think you're going to be great. The mind is so expert. But how much experience do we have of actually being great? How much experience do we have of actually saying, okay, this is going to satisfy me, and we get it, and it's not satisfying? We think it's going to change our life. We think it's going to change how everybody sees us, how we work, how we think. But actually, we're completely in illusion. But again, the mind is so expert. You think, actually, I failed that time, but next time when I get this, I'll be good. I used to think because I did good in one game, I was like, wow, from this game, everything is changing. From this game, I'm gonna just stay consistent and change the whole, and I'm gonna just become the greatest. Everybody's gonna know my name. The mind convinces us of that. It convinces us of that. Because the senses come in touch and experiences a little bit of sensation. You get a little bit of sensation, and then we mistaken that to be pleasure. We mistaken that to be pleasure. We think this is a happiness. But it's not. It's just like winter and summer. It's just a sensation to the body, Hot and cold. Hot and cold. You apply hot and you apply cold. It's just a sensation. Neither of those things are happiness. Because in the same summer, in the winter you want the heat, right? We live out of this van. Like we were traveling this weekend. We went to Florida. We were in Atlanta. It was kind of cold, but it was raining and it was cool. And so then, or like in the winter when we're traveling in the van, you want to put the heat on. It's really nice. It's like makes the van really hot and really nice. But then you go to Florida, that same heat becomes the sources of misery. Or in the summer, you want to put the AC on. Like yesterday, we tried to put the AC on, but we were having a little trouble. We didn't want to keep the van on all night. We tolerated the heat. But the point is that in the summer, you want the cold. You want to experience air conditioning. But in the winter, you put the same air conditioning on and it's suffering. Right? Does anybody want air conditioning in the summer? Should we put the heater on in here? Everybody would probably walk out the room, right? All of a sudden, if it's like 90 degrees outside and we put the heater in here and it's 100 degrees, it's so nice out there. But before you came from outside, it was like you're trying to get out of that situation from the sun. So it's just a sensation. It's not pleasure. It's not pleasure. These things come and go. They're just sensations. And so the Bhagavatam says that one who is unintelligent, one who is foolish, he sees these sensations as the pleasure of life, as the goal of life. And so he becomes bewildered. He loses himself. He actually loses himself. This Atma, he becomes a victim of the mind. That he's illusioned in this way, that he thinks that these small, tiny sensations, or these sensations that come and go, are the be-all and the end-all of life. And that's how they think. That's how the atheists think. That drink, be merry. What is it? Drink. What is it? Drink, be merry. Huh? Eat, drink, and be merry. For tomorrow we shall all die. Just like the pigs and the dogs and the hogs. No, that's the consciousness they're in. Just enjoy life, enjoy life. They can't think of anything greater. But Krishna, or Prabhupada here, is making the point that the purpose of the yoga system is control the mind and draw it away from the attachment to sense objects. Vacho vegam, manasakrodha vegam, jiva vegam, udara pashta vegam. So in the nectar of instruction, you'll learn the first thing is to control the mind, control the senses, control the tongue, belly, and genitals, the forces of anger. So first thing is to start to detach ourselves from these sense objects. And that comes with the help of the mind. If we're austere, this tapo divyam, actually this human form of life is meant for austerity. We're actually meant to restrain. We have the ability to restrain. The animals do not have that. Just like, my God, we're driving in the highway, and when these deers, they see light, they jump in front of your car. It's ridiculous. The animal, or like there's these little, like this bird, we were just driving, and it drove right into our tire. I was like, what's wrong with this thing? It's crazy. They're so pulled by their senses that there's no check and balance. In the animal form of life, there's no checks and balances. But in the human form of life, we have that control. We know we can stop that if we train it. If you don't train the mind, there's no question of control. So the Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, it takes us in that direction. Now that you've attained the human form of life, inquire about self-realization, perform austerity, divine austerity, for the purpose of for a divine purpose. So, like I was saying, these animals, they have no control. The senses immediately they see an object of their senses, immediately finished. They're willing to die. Like you see a moth, and like we had a fire going when we were out in this. And living entities would fry straight into it. It's like, there's like, you're going to die, It's a big hot red fire, but their eyes, see, for the moth, the eyes is so controlled by the light. When they see light, just like, or if you're out there and you turn your light on in your car and you leave your door open, finish. Good luck sleeping in there. So they're so controlled by their senses. They're pulled. Animals are pulled by their senses without any checks. But we don't want to be like that, because what does it lead to? It leads to death. It leads to death for the animals. And for the conditioned soul who's in this human form of life, it simply is a waste. It's a waste of this life. So there is, in the human form of life, the purpose is to perform divine austerity for self-realization, to recognize this fact. So it starts with controlling the tongue. It starts with controlling the senses, restraining from them, even though we know that this may give some pleasure, because we know ultimately it may lead to some displeasure. We can pull back, and that comes with the help of the mind. Krishna says one learns to control the mind by practice. By practice. Not that it happens instantly, but one starts to practice this self-control. One recognizes that I'm uncontrolled. So Prabhupada says here that it is stressed herein that the mind must be so trained that it can deliver the conditioned soul from the mirror of ignitions. In material existence, one is subjected to the influence of the mind and the senses. In fact, the pure soul is entangled in this material world because the mind is involved with the false ego, which desires to lord it over material nature. Therefore, the mind should be trained so that it will not be attracted by the glitter of material nature. And in this way, conditioned soul may be saved. One should not degrade oneself by attraction to sense objects. The more one is attracted by sense objects, the more one becomes entangled in material existence. The best way to entangle oneself is to always engage the mind in Krishna consciousness. So this is the solution to all our problems. The mind is so uncontrolled. Is it difficult to control the mind? What Krishna says, what does Krishna say? How hard is it to control the mind? No, Arjuna says this, sorry. What does Arjuna say? Because Krishna is telling Arjuna, you should control the mind, do all this. But what does Arjuna tell him? That it is easier to control the wind than the mind. The mind is harder to control than the wind. Can anybody control the wind? Could you ever, it's a hurricane going on, you can say stop? No, there's no question of it. There's like, just forget about it. So Arjuna is saying that to Krishna. It's like, it's impossible. But Krishna is saying how to do this. Manmana bhava mad bhakto. Krishna is telling Arjuna, act in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada is saying the same thing here. So that because the mind is involved with this false ego, it is in touch with this false ego, which desires to lord it over material nature, where we've falsely identified ourselves as a black person, as a white person, as a man, as a woman, as this nature of this world. And that basis of that identification is, how will I enjoy this world? How will I become the center of this world? How will I become glorified? How will I become the greatest? How will I enjoy the most? What is my greatest enjoyment? It's like we're traveling here. We traveled all the way to Panama City, and you see everyone you meet, they're just trying to enjoy themselves. They're trying to become the enjoyer, but you can see it's very miserable. It's not possible. Because they're checked at every point. They're checked by the mind, they're checked by others, they're checked by nature. We were there, and it was raining. Panama City Beach, you go all the way to Panama City Beach after working for months, and the week that you went down there for vacation is storms. Your desires to enjoy in this world is checked by material nature. But we desire to lord it over. This mind functions on that basis that, okay, I am this person and now I want to enjoy. The mind functions on the basis of this false ego. That we've falsely identified ourselves as this material body. And also falsely identified ourselves as the enjoyer of everything. So the mind becomes the enemy on this platform. Because ultimately, dukhalayam ashashvitam, the desire to lord over material nature always brings about misery, independent of how you do it. There's no one that's actually satisfied in the world because they are controlled by lust. And lust, Krishna says, it burns like fire. It completely consumes the person. There's no end to it. So the mind needs to be trained. This actually, in order to do that, Prabhupada says, why does he say that the mind must always engage the mind in Krishna consciousness? That is the solution, the best way to disentangle oneself. Because when one engages in Krishna consciousness, this basis of false identification is completely transformed. One stops identifying with this material body. In the platform of Krishna consciousness, one stops identifying as a black and a white and a such and such. And he comes to the identification of Krishna consciousness. He comes to the identification that Krishna is the real enjoyer. So if the mind is engaged on this basis of understanding, at least a theoretical understanding is there in the beginning, then the mind starts to act on that basis, think on that basis, feel on that basis, and then will to act on that basis, then the senses become controlled. So then, when we function on that basis, the mind becomes the greatest of our friend. Why? Because it is elevating us to the platform. Our real existence, of our Krishna conscious existence, our real relationship with Krishna can be seen. So the mind, how does it engage in Krishna consciousness? Well, we think, right? We're always thinking. But instead of thinking about so much nonsense in our brains, in our minds, using it to come up with so much nonsense, we can start to think about Krishna conscious subject matter. And there's unlimited varieties of Krishna conscious subject matter that you can contemplate upon. You can contemplate upon the form of Krishna. You can think about the form of Krishna. You can think about the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, the instructions of Krishna. You can think about how you can perform service to Krishna. And when this contemplation starts, when this thinking starts, then the feeling to act for Krishna also comes. When one actually understands by hearing, you see, this hearing is what transforms us. That's why Bhagavatam Shravanam Kirtanam, this is very important, this Shravanam and Kirtanam, to hear and chant. To hear this message, that message, Bhagavatam says, it completely, the super soul, when one actually hears this message, the super soul within the heart of the living entity cleanses the heart, and one comes to a factual realization. So just by hearing, it penetrates through this false ego and brings us to the level of real ego, our real identification as Krishna conscious living entities. So on that platform, then the mind is able to start to think more clearly about Krishna. The more we hear and the more we contemplate upon that hearing, we will start to come to realization, and then this thinking, and then this feeling will come to act in devotional service. And then we'll employ those feelings, and to act within Krishna consciousness through our senses. And then Prabhupada says, then the senses become like snakes without venom. You see, right now the senses are like snakes. They're our enemies. When we act with the senses, performing sense gratification, then it's very poisonous for us. Because why? Prabhupada says, well, one becomes more entangled in this material world when one performs sense gratification. More and more entangled. So that's the poison. It's the entanglement. But when one performs Krishna consciousness, when he acts with the senses for Krishna, then the senses are still like snakes, but the venom has been removed. The entanglement is no longer there. Actually, that actions that the senses perform becomes liberating. So we're thinking, when we're reading, that's why reading these books is so important. It is the most important part of your life, is to read these books. You make that the center of your life, the reading and practicing what is in the books. Make that the center of your life, and you'll see everything change. You'll just see everything change. So one hears from the spiritual master, one hears from proper authoritative literatures, And then he learns how to think in a Krishna conscious way. It's not that, I am Krishna conscious, now I can just, as long as I think about Krishna, then everything is fine. Well, that's one platform. But Krishna, is speaking to us in this Bhagavad Gita in how we can function that, how in such a way that we can make the most amount of advancement. Krishna is advising Arjuna, think of me always. How to think of me? Think of me as you fight. Do everything on my behalf. So Arjuna, who is in our position in this Bhagavad Gita, he's taking that role as a disciple and coming to this understanding of how to control the mind. And Krishna gives him the secret is to always think of him. So the mind, it becomes this friend, because now we're coming to the level of not entanglement but liberation. So we think of Krishna in many different ways, like I was saying, reading, chanting, seeing Krishna, using all our senses, smelling the flowers that is offered to Krishna. So we start to contemplate upon these activities, cooking for Krishna. What will I cook tomorrow for Krishna? And then naturally feelings arise. When you act out of love for someone, naturally feelings arise. And naturally you'll desire to do more. And this will give us real happiness, not the sensations of this material world. When the senses engage in this satisfaction of the Lord, that is real satisfaction. That's not sensation. When the senses come in touch with devotional service, they become enlivened. We start to derive real pleasure because we're finally coming in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We start to come to that platform of real pleasure, because ultimately that's where the mind is trying to take us. It's like, enjoy this, enjoy this, enjoy this. But we can understand this is all false right now, on the basis of false ego. But on the platform of Krishna consciousness, this is susukam kartam avyayam. It is performed very joyfully. It is very joyful. It is very enlivening when the senses taste this prasadam, where this is being offered right now. When they taste prasadam, the tongue, which is generally, in the literature, in that nectar of instruction, that's the first thing, to control the tongue, because it is very ferocious. So one can take that same tongue which wants to enjoy so many nasty material food, and take that and engage that in Krishna consciousness by taking very nice Krishna prasadam. And that is not just a sensation, that is real pleasure. That is real pleasure. Because the soul is getting nourishment. It's not just the body, or it's not just the tongue that's getting some feeling of, feeling some enlivening of from different foods like that. It will become enlivened, but it will actually be satisfying. So, and the eyes can see the beautiful form of the Lord. All the senses, all the hands can be engaged in making so many different garlands, or cooking, or cleaning, or such and such. The feet can be used in walking to the temple, in doing service in the temple. So the mind, when it is functioning properly, it is able to engage the senses properly. And when the mind is controlled, the intelligence is stable. And then naturally the soul itself, it comes to proper identification. Right now there's false identification, and it comes to this platform of a Krishna conscious identification, its original identification. So Prabhupada ends this purport by this statement: for man, the mind is the cause of bondage, and mind is the cause of liberation. Mind absorbed in sense objects is the cause of bondage, and mind detached from the sense object is the cause of liberation. Therefore, mind which engaged in Krishna consciousness is the cause of supreme liberation. So, when we absorbed in Krishna, naturally when we're absorbed in Krishna consciousness, we will become detached from the sense objects. Or naturally become detached. It's not a separate process where you have to sit there and go, I'm detached, I'm not going to touch this, I'm not going to touch this. But actually one naturally loses detachment for it. Just like when you go to the bathroom, you don't have attachment. It's not a thought, because you know it's useless. So when one wants to come to the platform of Krishna consciousness, all these attachments of the senses and all these attachments of the senses to the sense objects naturally become detached, because Vishaya vinivartante nirahare siddhena rasovrajam rasopasya param drishva nivartate. One experiences a higher taste. The senses get a higher taste. The mind is getting a higher taste. The intelligence is getting a higher taste. So naturally, you don't want to engage in the lower things. Nobody wants, a hand me down. So Krishna consciousness is the topmost platform of yoga. It's the topmost platform of existence. So when one experiences that, naturally, you won't be attracted to sex and illicit sex and intoxication and gambling and meat eating. All these things become nasty. They are only nasty activities. And you'll realize that on the Krishna conscious platform. And we've seen that practically in our own lives. Taking up Krishna consciousness. Naturally, when you actually engage seriously with a proper attitude, you naturally become detached from these things. It's not a separate process. You don't have to be so worried like, oh my God, how am I going to let go of these things? You just perform Krishna consciousness. Come, associate with the devotees. Engage your mind in Krishna consciousness. You will become free of all these attachments. You become completely free of them. It is practically seen. It is practically seen. It is not just some philosophy we're stating. We've experienced it in our life, and we've seen it. Those who are sincere, who've actually want to practice, they've seen it in their own life. Naturally, they don't want to do those things anymore because they're very binding. One can feel it. One engages in the activity. It's very. You feel you can realize the entanglement that comes with those activities. So naturally, you're absorbed in a higher level of activity. This Krishna conscious activity, serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This will really satisfy the soul. So, and on that platform, then you can trust your mind to always be your friend. So, I will end the class there, and we can have questions and comments. So, does anybody have questions and comments? Anything at all? No? Everything is clear? Anything unclear? You can ask. We're going to get the mic ready. Can you pass me my water bottle? I think it's there. So, okay. You have something, bro? Mataji, do you have something? Okay, Deja Mataji.
You were mentioning how the false ego causes like distortions of the mind, and that's typically what makes the mind our enemy. But what necessarily is the false ego?
It's false identification. Identification with this material body. That's what false ego. Ego means the self. But false ego is just a false idea of who I am. So we're like functioning on this basis of like, I'm this black, I'm this white, I'm this person, I'm this community, I'm from this. So that is like basis of our existence right now on this false ego. And then the mind acts on that basis. And so it is entangling like that. Does that make sense? False ego is just this false identification with this body. It's very deeply rooted. Is the most deeply rooted thing. So it's not something easy. But by the hearing of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada says in his prayers that by hearing this will become annihilated and one will come to the platform of Krishna consciousness. Does that kind of answer your question? Okay. Yes. You can speak into the mic then.
The supreme personality of the Godhead.
Uh-huh.
So why is that said? I mean, what does that mean?
So Prabhupada actually makes this point in the preface of the Srimad Bhagavatam, where he says, absolute truth is. Do you remember where that is? It's in the preface, right? First line of the intro. So the conception of God and the conception of absolute truth are not the same level. The Srimad Bhagavatam hits on the target of the absolute truth. The concept of God indicates the controller, whereas the conception of the absolute truth indicates the summum bonum, or the ultimate source of all energies. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead is making this point that He is the ultimate source of everything. The Supreme Personality is not just the controller. He's the Supreme Personality. He's the ultimate source of all energies. So people can mistake, and if you just say God, okay, it's just the controller, and there's so many gods they may say, but He is the source of all energies. So Prabhupada makes that distinction: the conception of God and the conception of absolute truth. So Supreme Personality of God, we're talking about the absolute truth on that level, like that. Is that okay?
And Vishnu and the other deities that are given names. So Krishna is above those deities, or
So-
are they just different names for the same cosmic energy?
No. So we got Krishna. Krishna, he's the Krishna tu Bhagavan Swayam. The Bhagavatam says like this: that Krishna is the source of everything. Vishnu is also, expansion of Krishna. But then we start to see Jiva is different from that. There's different energies. So Krishna's internal energy, marginal, and external. So the Jiva, like the demigods, like, you'll see Indra and all this, they fall in this marginal, they fall in this same as the Jiva. But Vishnu himself is also the Supreme Personality, but the source of Vishnu is actually Krishna. But Shiva is different. He's not Jiva or Vishnu. He falls in this middle category. He's like considered like milk transformed into yogurt. So they're not the same. They're not the same. There's Krishna, who is the Supreme Personality. Is very clearly distinguished. Krishna is the Supreme Personality, and Vishnu Tattva is also his internal potency. They're also actually God, but Krishna has expanded himself. But Shiva and the living entities, like the different gods within this material world that are there, like Indra and Ganesh and all these, they fall in a different category completely. Is that okay?
Yes, one more quick question. So Krishna is this Krishna consciousness is within the jiva.
It is inherent nature of the jiva.
Okay, so then is it wrong to identify oneself as Krishna?
Yes.
Can you explain?
Yeah. Just like a drop of the ocean is not the ocean.
But is it not all water?
Yeah, but it's not the ocean. You can't float a ship on it. So we're part and parcel of Krishna. We have the same quality, but we're different in quantity.
I see.
It's very different.
Yeah.
So like that.
So we're a small version of Krishna.
Yeah, qualitatively we're the same. Quantitatively we're very different. So we can't say we are the same.
Immensity, and in terms of immensity, we're not as pervasive as
Yes,
Krishna,
Krishna is all
but Krishna
our qualities
is,
are the same because we come from him,
okay, but it's
but we're not him.
It's incorrect to make that as your identification.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
All right.
Our identification is the part.
yeah.
We're the part of Krishna.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, anything else? Any other questions? No? You can ask if you don't have to be shy. It's cool. All right. Nothing else? Okay. So, thank you. We're going to chant a little bit now. We're going to chant our beads. Anybody got? Can I get a bead too? Can I get some beads? Since we ended early, we can chant a whole round today. I'm down to. This is my. Okay, so has everybody been here before? Everybody in this room has been here before? This is your first time? Okay, so 10 minutes, 12 minutes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it takes like. Sure, we'll do. All right, we'll do 10 minutes. Okay, let's do 10 minutes. Okay, we'll do a speed of 10 minutes. I'll calculate it. I'll try to calculate it in my head. Like 5 seconds, a couple of seconds every beat. We'll try our best. Okay, we'll try our best to get 10 minutes. Okay, so in order to do this, okay, just 1 second. So in order to chant, I wanted to show, I think pretty much everyone else here knows how to hold the beats. It's on your middle finger, and your thumb sits not on the middle beat here with the tuft, but the one after that. Okay, just here, like that. So it goes like this. We've got the Hare Krishna mantra here. If your mind tends to take you other places, please bring it back to the sound vibration of the mantra, Hare Krishna and Rama. So basically, one bead, you chant the whole mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So that's one bead. And then you move to the next one, and then the next one, and we're going to do 108 of those. All right, so, all right, I'll try to set the pace so that we can do 10 minutes. So we can, they'll repeat up, they'll just follow me, no? Or, okay, so Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so that's the speed we're going to go at. That should give us 10 minutes. Okay. All right, 3, 2, 1. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare. Krishna Hare Krishna. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Did everyone finish? Okay, got a few left here and there. Okay, so this is the point. This is that is being mentioned here. The mind must be engaged. So you can engage the mind like this. This is the greatest way to engage the mind. Mantra, to deliver the mind by mantra. This mantra to deliver the mind. This is what this does. So you can start with this. It's the start, it's the beginning, it's the ending, it's everything. So this Maha Mantra, you can start by practicing this every day. Every morning you can chant. Do this for 10-15 minutes in the morning, and then before you go to sleep, do it once too. You'll see a huge difference in your life. You'll see you'll see detachment, you'll see knowledge. Everything will be revealed to you just by this chanting. So now I have to make some announcements. I do not have